Yeah. Bruins busy opening day of free agency. People kind of kicking this around. I don't think they've had a day like this, strictly speaking, with free agency since they signed Chara and Mark Savard. But they go out and they, we talked about last week, say, what's the most likely thing here? It's, I guess, sign Elias Lindholm and then do kind of something else. Either it's going to be a defenseman or it's going to be a goal-scoring winger. I was lobbying for a winger. They went defenseman, signed Nikita Zadorov. I like the moves. Sure. I do think this satisfies what you were talking about last week with a bit of an identity change.
No. Like, I think that... So they address needs clearly.
That's the thing
on their roster. So I don't fault them for making any of these moves. Like you had to bolster you needed a
center. You needed to get bigger.
Top 2-line center. You needed a defenseman who could be among your top 4. So like these are necessary moves. I don't even know if like hope for is the best way of putting it. Like it's something like I just want a little more like offensive firepower, like a little more athleticism, for lack of a better word. Like somebody you can just put the puck in the net, which it's like. So like Lindholm, really good 2-way center. Like what am I going to get on the offensive end?
He scored 40 goals 2 years ago.
So, but no, he's capable. I'm not doubting that, but it's what version of him do you get?
Yeah, I think putting him with
walking in for a long time,
putting him on a line with. Pavel Zacha and David Pastrnak should get him going. And maybe he doesn't score 40 goals, but if he has a ton of assists, like feeding Pastrnak especially, then maybe that's offensive production need too.
Yeah.
I like Zadorov's game, I guess, in terms of, he's just a massive human being. There's that video going around. It's like a 2.5-minute video of him just murdering guys. I think they need that, especially when the playoffs roll around. I think the interesting thing with him was he was like more valuable in the playoffs, played more, was better for Vancouver in the playoffs than he was in the regular season. Seeing what they've had, the struggles they've had with Florida in the last couple of years, I think that's a needed addition. Kind of took me by surprise, though, because, again, we talked about this last week. I look at their defensive core, even subtracting for, like, Forbort and Grzelcyk. I was like, that's not a bad unit. Like, I don't think I would have gone out looking to spend $30 million on a guy like they did with Zadorov. So that kind of surprised me. And so I guess that's a little more sheltered way of saying I agree with you, because I do think you start building out their roster, their lines, and it's like there's a major hole at like second line right wing.
Yeah.
I did like roster projection the other day for NESN.com. I had Fabian Lysell there just because like that's the guy who makes the most sense if everyone plays up to their potential. There's no guarantee with that. So yeah, that's going to be the question, right? Is like, can they get enough scoring?
Yeah.
Or does it matter because their defense is so good and you expect Swayman to be Swayman?
Like, are they better now than they were a week ago? And if so, like, how much? Like, because I don't know from an odds standpoint, I don't think it really changed. I'm gonna have to go back and see what they were last week. But right now, Stanley Cup odds, the Bruins are 22-1, which I think might be exactly what they were when we were having this conversation last week. And they're right there with like it's them. Vancouver's also 22-1. The Kings are 23-1. So they're not. For context, Stanley Cup favorite next year. Florida Panthers and Edmonton Oilers both 9-1, Dallas 10-1, New Jersey 11-1. So like the Bruins are sort of in like the second tier, and I think after these moves, like that makes sense. That's where I put them, right? Like if I'm grading the moves they made, I'm probably giving them like a B plus.
Yep.
Because again, you address needs. I don't know if it gets you over the top.
I wouldn't feel terrible about having them in my betting portfolio though for the Stanley Cup, because like you can see,
I think there might be value there.
Yeah. And we talk about this. I think we talked about last week.
Playoff team should go a couple of rounds.
Sure, and they're not totally outclassed by the best team in the league, and that is something you can hope on. And I think they probably are closer to Florida than they were a week ago, partially because Florida loses, Tarasenko, Montour. There's just a natural turnover. Bruins got a little bit better too, so like I think they're there.
It's interesting. Like we had talked about teams making moves to sort of combat the Celtics DNA, like their roster construction, and like you can make the case that like the Bruins, their moves, they like you said, they match up better with the likes of Florida now. Like especially when you consider the pieces that Florida lost. So
I look at these numbers and Jersey at 11-1. I have a couple things I would hit on real quick, but like I like what they did, but I don't know is that a team. Same thing with Toronto 15-1.
So just now going like
it's the usual suspects. Drilling down, I'm not ready to put like the Devils ahead of them or whatever.
Going to like the East specifically, so the Eastern Conference futures for next season. Obviously, Panthers favorites 4-1, Devils 5-1, Maple Leafs 7-1, Hurricanes 7-1, Rangers 7-1, Lightning 10-1, Bruins 11-1, and then there's like a drop off to the Senators at 23-1. Then you get down a little bit.
Yeah,
but so the East it goes like there's not a clear favorite, and it goes 6, 7, 8 deep if you wanted to dip into the next tier and bring somebody up a little bit. Like if you believe that Linus Ullmark can change what they have going on in Ottawa. So they're there. They're right there.
Yep. It's a good way of looking at it. It feels like they're in the same spot every year too. A little bit slept on going into the season, and they overperform, and then by the time the playoffs roll around, you're disappointed when they don't get deeper because you just saw them win 48 games and you think they're probably better than they actually are. So, I think they're slightly better, if not the same, which is a good thing, I suppose.
How about Nashville?
So that's the team.
Predators just.
What are do you have their odds still up? They are not. The
Predators, you Stanley Cup odds.
Yeah,
they're 20-1.
Right, like that feels
20-1 to win the Stanley Cup.
I know it's apples and oranges, but imagine if an NBA team came out and did what the Predators did this week, where they go out and sign Stamkos
plus 950 to win.
March, so Brady Shea, like they'd be like, wow, this team's they're 8-1. So I would think about them as a potential. Funny thing they're going to be a trendy Stanley Cup.
Is like the I know this like Stamkos going to Nashville as part of that flurry gets all the play.
Yeah,
I think Tampa Bay essentially replacing Stamkos with Jake Gensel is the better move. Like I think I like what Tampa did this offseason maybe more so than what Nashville did.
You talk about the Eastern Conference thing. I like Tampa 10-1 in the East.
I really like that.
Better than I do the Devils at 5-1.
You're maintaining that top line. You probably got better defensively, maybe slightly worse offensively. You got a younger player, he's 4 years younger than Stamkos, so you maybe open that window up an extra crack. So, that's a move that stuck out to me.
They have Billy Madison, now you're all in big trouble vibes if they kind of just get it back on the tracks.
Yeah.
Maybe the window's already like completely shut and we're just kind of living in the past, but it wouldn't shock me if it gets to the All-Star break next year and it's like, how do we all kind of just bury the Lightning? So I also like what Seattle did. They were a pain in the ass to play against last year, flirted with a playoff spot, go get Montour, get Chandler Stevenson. They overpaid for probably both of them, but in the short term I think they'll be better. Two guys got their name on the cup. So and then Jersey added D and a goalie, so I don't know.